Welcome back to the Safety Nights Ergo Summit. We're thrilled to have you here for today's session, Hidden Ergo Resources, Squeeze the Most Out of Insurance. If this is your first session, welcome. And if you're coming back from yesterday, welcome back. Before I get into the introduction, introducing today's presenter, I just want to say I've tossed my contact information in the chat. So if you have any questions about the summit or you just want to reach out and connect, feel free to use that. So having said that, we'll jump in. Presenting today's presenter, who has over 2 decades of experience in global risk management and worker safety. She has become a driving force in the industry and is known for her innovative approach to maximizing resources and advocating for EHS leadership. She's an award-winning expert, an author, and co-founder of the Safety Justice League podcast. Safe to say she's someone who truly pushes the boundaries in the field. So having said that, I'll turn the stage over. Abby, it's all yours. Take it away.
Awesome. Thank you. And thanks for the welcome. I kind of laugh at the title of the presentation, even though I came up with it. It kind of sounds like, ooh, we're gonna do something, secret that we shouldn't do or know. And that's kind of how I meant this to be. So I really do want you to, take this advice to heart and go after the resources that are out there for you, because it's likely most of you are underutilizing what's available. So just trying to shed some light on what you might not know. And during this presentation, it's okay to put questions and comments in the chat. I have that open on the side. So if there's something in the moment that makes sense to answer or address, I'll see it and I'll do something with it. So please do make this interactive. Super specific questions, maybe we could take those outside of this presentation, but please do feel free to reach out and I'll have my contact information at the end for you. So what do I mean by insurance partners? A lot of us working in workplace safety, if your position is like safety manager, safety something, safety director, safety coordinator, that often the insurance partner that is most relevant to what you do is the workers' comp insurance carrier. And so I'll show you some visualizations of what your company's insurance tower might look like, and to give you an idea of the landscape of the different types of insurance partners that are out there for you. So looking at not only business insurance or commercial insurance, but also looking at your company's health insurance. So sometimes you'll have a different broker for the commercial side of the insurance, and then you'll have a different broker for the health and wellness and benefits. Sometimes companies choose one broker for all of that. It gives you the opportunity to learn a little bit more about your business and how it's structured and the types of partners that are out there for you. So my main point is that I think a lot of professionals, safety professionals, are leaving resources on the table year after year. And it's not so much that it benefits the insurance carrier to not provide you these resources, but it's more important on the other side that you know what's available so that you advocate for getting those resources for your company. So it's not like the insurance companies are trying to screw you over. I mean, not in this sense, but sometimes depending on the market factors, the size of your organization, the fit that you have with your insurance carrier, sometimes they're just not making these resources proactively known to you. And that's not your fault. And sometimes that's not their fault either. It's just kind of how the landscape is. Often these resources are at no additional cost to your company. So as a policyholder of specific business insurance policies, you have these resources available to you. So also, just super quick, making sure that you guys know that the handout is available for this presentation too. So take some notes, but you can also download the slides as a handout as well. These resources that I'm going to talk about, to me, they're most valuable for your workforce, but they also benefit you. As a safety professional, it's something that can help you develop your career, being able to navigate these insurance policies and resources more proactively, and just to know what's out there. So it's for you, it's for your people, and it's also a benefit to your organization. All right, so I wanted to give you an overview, and I use this juice and fruit option throughout, because you're really squeezing what you can out of the companies. So I use an orange to block out the company that this resource came from, but it's pretty similar to what you'd find at any insurance carrier, or mostly brokers. That the broker is representing your company out in the insurance marketplace. And so this is a typical visual of what an commercial insurance broker would present to your insurance decision makers at your organization. So this is what's known as an insurance tower. And so you'll see, I guess workers' comp isn't even on here, so it's kind of not a great example. So pretend workers' comp is right there with auto and general liability. I don't think there's a pointer, but they're the fourth and fifth ones over from the left. So the lower or the lowest bars are your primary insurance carriers. So likely the insurance carriers that you interact with or have the possibility to interact with in a risk control setting. So these insurance carriers, again, look at the auto and general liability, those blue bars there, and just stick workers' comp in the middle. I should have done that. I'm sorry, I didn't see this. So usually in safety, we're talking with our workers' comp, auto, and general liability insurance carriers more frequently, and property too. So property is that tall one over on the far right. And so these are the carriers that are most in tune to what's going on at your organization, and that you as a safety professional might interact with them because they need to come out and see your workplaces. They might have questions on, how you train people, how you have written programs to manage your company's risk. And so the primary carriers, these are their limits, let's say, on this chart. Then we also have umbrella insurance, which is insurance that's over, you can visualize this tower, that would respond when the primary insurance policies limits are met. So some companies, they'll have, like, this is a visual for a school district, I think is the example. So you can see where some of these policies come into play. Cyber insurance is big, crisis management, active assailant, EPLI is employees liability, professional liability. So that's something that's, may or may not be as much on the tower for your organization as it is here. So just showing you the landscape of the different types of insurance carriers on the commercial side that you may be able to interact with to get yourself some resources. You also might find, if you talk to your company's, let's say you're a safety director, you're the highest up safety professional at your organization, make sure you talk to your company's CFO, CEO, COO, and ask about the insurance program and find out who your partners are. Who's our insurance broker? Who's our insurance carrier for workers' comp? What kinds of resources do they have out there for us? It's not uncommon that a safety professional would be in an insurance marketing pitch type of meeting, or in a kickoff meeting when you switch to a new carrier or switch to a new broker. So make sure that you're getting involved in those conversations so you can understand what's available to you. So the insurance companies, or the carriers in that previous tower slide, these are your traditional insurance carriers, and they have traditional insurance resources to go along with it. AKA, these are just the table stakes for them for doing business. So nothing super fancy here, but these are things that you can look for that if you aren't dialed in with these resources that you want to look for it. So since we're talking about ergonomics, lots of the insurance carriers, especially workers' comp, they're going to offer ergonomic assessments where maybe it's a desktop assessment where it's literally about someone's office and how their office is laid out. Or desktop could mean that they're doing a desktop survey, desktop meaning the insurance risk control person's desktop, that they're evaluating photos, videos, or maybe talking over the phone with somebody about the ergonomic setup of a specific task or workstation. Or they'll come out to you and actually do a baseline ergonomic assessment based on maybe claims history that your company might have, strains and sprains related to lifting. And so the insurance carrier wants to come out and take a look at that. Take advantage of that service. Often the risk control person is tasked with doing this. If you have high frequency, which is just how many claims you have, or high severity, which means that the claims are severe in the injury, what it is, and or in the dollar cost of the claim. So if a claim is over $100,000, let's say, often that's looked at as a severe claim. And so the more frequency and severity your company has, the more attention kind of proactive, reactively that the insurance carrier's loss control person or risk control person is going to be tasked with coming out and seeing your operations. So it's something that's part of the service offering from the carrier, which is great. Another example of table stakes are these portal-based resources where you get some kind of welcome email and it says, log into this platform and, access all these resources. So this is the low-hanging fruit, really, with insurance risk control, but it can be quite useful. There are carriers out there that have developed niche vertical resources. So they specialize in healthcare and senior living. So they might have really robust patient handling resources in their portal. So don't poo-poo the portal. Sometimes I might think, oh, great, another self-service resource. I got to remember another login and look at it once and probably never again. Give it a chance. If your insurance carrier is offering something like this, log in and click around and see what's in there, because you may find something that's useful. Some insurance carriers and brokers, they'll have a learning management system, an LMS. And so they keep their LMS under their lock and key, but often you can pull like a spreadsheet or PDF report of training that people have done through their LMS platform, and you can export that and then import it into an LMS that you may have. So just because some of these resources might be a little clunky, it doesn't mean that you can't incorporate it into stuff that you're already doing. So just ask. And on these portals, these usually workers' comp carriers have a pretty strong portal. So do auto carriers. Or if you're with a larger insurance carrier, like Travelers, Liberty, the ones you see commercials for, Zurich is another one. They're multi-line carriers. And so, but their portals often don't differentiate. So let's say you're with Travelers for workers' comp. You can log into their portal and you can also see their auto liability resources. You can see their property resources. So again, just because one carrier is just focusing on one policy for you, the resources actually might encompass more than just that one policy, which is a nice little benefit for you. Another thing on those portals is that often the welcome email from the insurance carrier or broker will go to that insurance decision maker, which sometimes is, a CFO or a CEO. And that email goes to their inbox and dies. So if you are, looking for this type of thing, just reach out to that person and say, hey, I know we have a new workers' comp carrier. If they send you an invite for a self-service portal, I'd love to see that. And so sometimes it's a company level based username and password or access code, or you can always reach out after that higher level decision maker, gives the okay. You can reach out to the insurance carrier and they can provide you a password for yourself. Sometimes this stuff is based on an email or other usernames, so you'd want it to be your own. This stuff is pretty valuable. Sometimes they have multi-factor authentication to get into these portals. They're pretty locked down. So, just reach out and ask to get that resource. What these traditional carriers do, and brokers too, especially, they focus on what they call TCOR or TCOR, which is total cost of risk. And so that's a more business jargon, I guess, approach to selling and marketing and influencing on risk control and risk management to those decision makers that don't specialize in safety and risk management at your organization. So they're framing risk management and risk control as a total cost of risk to show, hey, you have these high frequency ergonomics claims, and here's what we're going to do for you. So often the brokers will propose a plan for services that's pretty well informed because it's based on your claims data. So here's a case where if your company is kind of a clunker, kind of a stinker with claims, and you've got high frequency, high severity, you feel pretty challenged as a safety manager, safety director, or other safety professional, there's help, because your insurance carriers are very invested in assisting you with reducing claims. They want to help you not only reduce the frequency and severity, but also the time it takes for a claim to be reported and for a claim to be resolved and ultimately closed. So there's a lot of metrics that an insurance carrier or broker are putting into that total cost of risk that can impact you as a safety professional. So again, these high frequency, high severity, squeaky wheel types of companies get the grease from the insurance partners. So if you're doing pretty well with claims, with the frequency and severity, it might take a few extra steps to get some assistance from the insurance carrier or the insurance broker. So there's some other nuances that go into that. If your insurance broker is helping your company navigate to find a different insurance carrier for a specific line and want to improve your company as a risk, they may work with you to kind of do almost like a boot camp, like turn you around so that you're better for the marketplace, which is the other insurance carrier options out there. And then other table stakes types of resources that carriers have are third-party resources that either you get because you're their client, or that they pass on a discount to you if you engage with these types of platforms. So nurse triage is a big one. I think with companies that have high frequency, high severity of strains and sprains, that nurse triage can be really effective because workers can call the nurse triage line directly and get walked through some, first aid types of responses for, shoulder strain, back strain, a neck pinch, something like that. And then that prevents, or that minimizes sometimes these becoming claims, because a worker can have some early intervention with a nurse who lends some credibility to the situation and take care of it, and then you may not have a claim that actually goes on the books. Engaging with nurse triage does not mean that there is a workers' comp claim opened. In fact, it's only if the worker actually has to go in for treatment that's beyond first aid, that or even not beyond first aid. Honestly, a workers' comp claim could be something that isn't recordable. That's a whole other conversation. So don't assume that just because someone's calling nurse triage that it's going to ding you on your claims. Often it doesn't, because it's not turning into a claim. But it is getting the insurance carrier some more data about you, because they can pull the nurse triage logs and know what's going on. But that's good, because then you can start to deploy resources that are meaningful against what's actually happening at your company. Also, third party is involved with post-offer, pre-placement, functional testing, things like that. poet testing, you might see it as. So sometimes carriers, especially workers' comp, will offer those resources either through preferred medical groups or a third party, again, that you either pay for, at a discount, or that is included in your policy, depending on the company. Okay, I just want to see a couple comments here. Thank you, Randy. I'm glad that this is a good showcase, so that's cool. And again, it is support for safety professionals. Early in my career, the risk control professionals from my insurance carriers, they were like on the job training for me. So those people get out and they see all kinds of businesses that are your competitors or in different industries. And so often just their insight from being out there in the field is super helpful. So definitely talk to your risk control professionals. Brandy's saying, using these resources won't cost us extra, maybe the next year. Like if the insurance company sees us using these resources, they won't charge us more the next year. So usually this goes into the total cost of risk conversation, that if your company is engaging with resources, it's likely that it's coming out better on your loss performance and less claims costs. And so all this is kind of, it shakes out in the underwriting. So if you're improving your losses and improving your performance, chances are your costs could actually go down. And if you're engaging with resources that the insurance company isn't charging you extra for, that's a win-win, because you have the resources plus you're doing better. And so your premium is getting more fine-tuned in those following years. And then this is where you can start to show the return on investment of engaging in these types of resources and activities, because the investment may have been zero. And also showing how safety practices relate to and impact claims, which then impacts the company's premium, which directly impacts the company's bottom line. So these risk control resources at your insurance partners, they're a great ally for you in safety, because it's helping you show return on investment and showing impact of safety practices. So it's a really nice synergistic relationship. Okay, so then there's also insurance adjacent resources. So this is where we're looking at, I guess I should call it business or commercial insurance adjacent resources, because I'm looking at health. And so I have noticed in my experience that some, mid-market and smaller employers, they don't have the strongest health insurance programs, but often there's parts and pieces from those health insurance offerings that can be utilized to assist with workers' comp loss prevention. So hang with me. If your company has a benefit program for your workers that are actually, doing the work, not just for the administrative side workers, but for the workers that are doing, making the widgets, building the things, whatever it is that your company actually does. So look into what your benefits broker and benefits carriers are offering, because often you'll find things like an employee assistance program, which can assist with those, psychosocial types of hazards and risks that workers face, and that sometimes impact their work. So an EAP could offer gambling problem assistance, where if someone is, gambling on football heavily this season and losing a bunch of money, how does that worker show up at work? It might be, something that could lead to incidents and injuries. So helping employees navigate what your company might offer, or the union, if the union is in play, through an EAP can be helpful. Again, just general health insurance coverage, making sure that people know how to navigate their health insurance. And if there's something, that proactively they want to go in and talk to their doctor about or get checked out, that can be under that health insurance side. I am not advocating that you tell people, if they're hurt at work, to go to their personal doctor and take care of it. But also, I'm just saying, looking at health insurance as kind of like a supplement to what you're doing in the workplace. There's also some really interesting health insurance incentive programs where if people, I'm a dork, I love turning over my data to get a discount or get, some kind of incentive from my health insurance company. So think of things like how you connect your Apple Watch or Fitbit to an app that your health insurance company offers. And because you're tracking your sleep 5 nights out of 10 and you're getting, 10,000 steps a few times a week, that you get, the money starts to add up. The program I'm in right now, I can earn $300 a year. A previous employer, it was like $150 per quarter when you participate in these wellness challenges or just adding your tracker data to their platform. And other things like getting a biometric screening or getting a flu shot or whatever it is, getting your annual physical. That's a big one because a lot of people aren't getting an annual physical. And so if you let them know, hey, if you go and do your annual physical, our health insurance program actually will give you a $50 incentive or whatever it is. $50, that's actually what I got for doing my annual physical. And then another 125 was the credit for doing the biometric screening, which is a simple blood draw. And then the labs go off and you get the results. So letting employees know about these things that they can use to proactively look at their own health and wellness and their family members, if family members are covered, they're subject to these incentives too. So for example, my husband could also earn the $300 incentive. So then we're getting $600 from the insurance carrier for just doing what we usually do, which is wear our Apple Watch or Fitbit every day to track our activities. So that could be cool. And then I'll get into some of these health insurance benefits where there's these programs that are for mental health and wellness, and also strain sprains and pains, I guess is what I should say too. There's an interesting program I did a few years ago where I was having a lot of back pain. And it turns out it was a lot of sitting at work after, coincidentally, with the COVID working from home situation. So regardless, the health insurance company sent me an Android tablet and some sensors to put on my, at my waistline and at my shoulders and whatnot to help coach me remotely while going through some physical activities and exercises and stretches to help my back. So that was pretty cool. And it was all free. So, when you get those flyers in the mail or those emails, take a look at them because some of these programs can be pretty cool. And as a safety professional, I feel it's kind of my duty to actually try these things out so that I can then let workers and coworkers know about it. Let's see. Caesar, sorry, did we go over post-offer pre-placement functional testing? I just breezed over it as a resource from your insurance carriers or your insurance broker. And so if that's something that's of interest to you, make sure to talk to your workers' comp insurance carrier, the risk control rep, or bubble it up, to the insurance decision maker at your company so that they can ask about that. It's kind of tricky territory because some companies really like post-offer pre-placement testing. Many don't, or if they're in a union environment, they feel that it is it's too difficult to work with unions often to deploy those post-offer pre-placement tests. So there's varying ways to do that, and I think Lisa from 3Motion AI was going to talk about that. So make sure to look at some of the other speakers because I think they might be discussing different ways that that post-offer pre-placement testing can be done. Okay, so some of the health plan resources that are out there. One that I used, it was that Kaya Health in the middle is the one that was like the pain one, where if you've got back pain that you're not sure what to do about, or shoulder pain, neck pain that Kaya Health is associated with, I think, United Healthcare, excuse me, and a couple other major health insurance plans. Rally is another company that's out there that is embedded with a lot of different health insurance carriers. They're based here in Minnesota. I think they still are. And they have a lot of those gamified types of solutions for health insurance adjacent wellness tracking and incentivizing people for engaging in the wellness tools. Able to is a resource I tried out with my previous job with the health plan, which was kind of a cross between coaching and like a Headspace, or not Headspace, BetterHelp, or there's another one, I'm blanking on it right now. But basically like online app-based therapy, but more so identifying specific concerns, like let's say anxiety, for example, which was the program that I tried out. And you get matched with a coach. And so it's all app-based. But in these coaching programs, you meet one-on-one with somebody in a video coaching session. So it's a real person, which is pretty cool. And then the Able To app has some exercises and videos and whatnot that I felt were pretty cool. They were, like easily scrolled through, almost like a carousel from Instagram of like little infographics or tips and pointers. And so very approachable for those in the workforce that are mobile, construction workers that are at multiple job sites, or manufacturing workers who, work odd hours or shift work. This type of app-based coaching, whether it's for physical health or mental health, or kind of a combination of both, and also the gamification of just using a tracker. You can also self-report. You don't have to have an Apple Watch or Fitbit to report these things either. But it's just ways that make health and wellness a little bit more approachable for everybody. It's deployed a lot in office settings, but hopefully it's rolling out and being implemented more in the more physical workplaces or industrial workplaces for those populations, because I think they can really benefit from it. And then this logo on the far right is for an app called Reactive. So I think my next slide is actually, showing that a little bit more. Excuse me. Okay, so you can check out Reactive Rehab, Reactive without the E. So just make sure you look it up that way, or just use the QR code. But I met the founder, Arthur, a few years ago, and I thought it was the coolest thing ever, because I was dealing with some healthcare settings where a lot of women in those fields having, just as you see in the picture, like wrist, elbow, shoulder strain incidents or issues or brewing issues from patient handling. And it was also a work population that the concept of Candy Crush, but for work, but for rehab or prehab of these upper extremity injuries, was something that they could grasp onto. So you can see it literally looks like Candy Crush or some other type of game. But what's happening is that you see that person's hand, they have to match with that stick and dot outline, and work through, they're coached through the app through some specific movements to do that. I mean, if anyone's done physical therapy for like a wrist sprain or strain or a surgery, that you're doing a lot of these like, small types of movements for, it all has like its place, but it feels kind of weird to be sitting there and like doing these weird movements with your hand. So gamifying it makes it, pass a little quicker and more enjoyably. And also people engage with this versus just pulling out the printed handout from their physical therapist and doing the exercises on their own. That when you have an app that reminds you to do these exercises and walks you through it, that it's just the what's the right word, the compliance is better. Not compliance in a bad way, but just that you're actually doing the exercises that you're supposed to do. So I really like this as a resource for those populations that have the app is for upper extremity rehab. So like a shoulder surgeries, elbow, tennis elbow, carpal tunnel, things like that. And then I think the app also has stuff now for lower extremities. But when it was founded, it was based on upper extremity injuries, to prevent the injuries and to do rehab for people after an injury occurs, after they're cleared to do so. So then the app also includes occupational therapist guidance. And so there's insurance companies that reactive rehab is embedded with, where it's covered. And so if someone goes to their doctor and, has concerns about, I have a lot of repetitive motion with my upper extremities, this could actually be something that is prescribed for their use and paid for, by their health plan. There's also options for employers to roll this out with worker populations and pay per OT session. And so they could set it up where, people have 4 OT sessions a year, or it's pay per use. And then this can be approachable by workers that way. I think you can also try this out for free on if you download the app. I've tried it before. It's been a couple of years, but I thought it was just really cool. So definitely check it out if this kind of speaks to you. Okay, then some other ideas. So if you've been to one of my presentations before, I'm often trying to help safety professionals understand the free or cheap or embedded resources that are out there for them, because I was once a safety department of one, and that's really tough. And so a lot of this stuff wasn't available back then, or I just didn't know about it. And so I feel, compelled to help my safety professional peers out on these things. And so you probably know about state OSHA grant programs, but here in Minnesota, and I know some other states do this too, where they have safety grant programs that basically can help you pay for safety interventions that you're planning to do anyway. And so here in Minnesota, there's a safety grant program that's existed for a long time. And now I think they have a specific one for ergonomics, because Minnesota OSHA actually has an ergonomic standard, which is pretty cool. So the state OSHA grant here in Minnesota, it's reliant on having the backup documentation of there was an inspection or other identification of an issue. So you've documented an issue, and usually companies work with their insurance carrier partners, because the insurance carrier, usually workers' comp, has come into the facility or the work site and has given an advisory or a urgent recommendation that the company must do XYZ, and they have to respond and say they did it. So if there's a big chunk of strains and sprains, and it has to do with an ergonomic concern, and that maybe there's training that people need, you could write a Minnesota OSHA grant application to have the cost of the training covered. Or if there's specific, maybe they want to roll out an exoskeleton program, or even just like the little, like the upper arm assist types of exoskeletons, not like the full body ones, that if you have the paperwork to back it up, you can write and apply for a grant and possibly get that grant. So look in your state jurisdictions for those types of programs, because sometimes that money is left on the table by the state's employers. So it's important that when there's these programs available, that we flood them with applications and actually spend that money that's been set aside. Another thought is to help people out with understanding, again, navigating their health insurance a little bit, but understanding how to use their HSA and FSA funds. Sometimes that might be for certain ergonomic aids that are preventative. Or I think an HSA or an FSA will cover orthotics for your shoes or work boots. And so it kind of crosses over or blends those lines of health insurance and workers' comp or workplace safety as far as preventing a claim. And then there's also a lot of technology out there for ergonomic interventions or things that could ultimately be incorporated at your site, whether it's a piece of equipment or software. And so insurance companies will have these pilot programs where they want to have diverse employers. If it's a product that's usually geared towards construction but could work for manufacturing too, maybe the insurance carrier is looking for a manufacturer that has, some issues that they could deploy this pilot test of, a wearable or a software platform, and you can take advantage of that. Again, it's an exchange for data, but I think that's a pretty fair exchange to use a tool that's going to help your company be a better risk and help manage risk for your people. In exchange for the free use of that thing, and to use your data to show, hey, this company improved year over year. So looking out for those kinds of creative ways to get ergonomics assistance and interventions done for your company. So I really think it's just down to 2 steps. I try to simplify things so that you have a starting point for action. So I think the first step is meeting your insurance partners. Like, I guess this is a multi-step first step. So if you haven't met your insurance carrier partners that are in risk control, make sure to do that. And then looking at, what are the resources that they're offering based on your claims data, or are they just kind of blanket offering some self-service risk control resources, which could be fine, but it's going to take you a little bit to navigate those resources to see what really is going to be a fit for your company. If you're a smaller employer, often the insurance carrier partners aren't going to put a ton of work into, data analytics around your claims trends. But if you're middle market or a larger employer, that information is going to be there from your insurance carrier partners or the broker partners, or both, really. And both might have either complementary or completely different resources, which can be a good or bad thing for you too. Excuse me. And so then the next thing, the second step, is connecting with people within your organization, aligning with their department goals to make sure that there's some kind of implementation of these interventions that are going to ultimately drive your claims costs down mainly with your workers' comp carrier in the case of ergonomics. So especially if you're a solo safety professional at a company, it's really important to build that bench of allies at your company that are in especially operations departments. I think it's important for safety to work with them and to understand what their goals are so that you can come in with resources from the insurance carriers that can support those goals that those other departments have. That's when real, great synergy comes into play. So I think, I simplified it, probably oversimplified it to have 2 steps, but I wanted to make it easy. First is to look at what's available to you. And second is to make those connections in your organization for, meaningful tools to be deployed for the workforce. Okay, there's another comment here. We have provided medical ergonomic evaluations for workers' comp claims as part of the medical management of the claim for 3 decades, where the insurer pays and supports for the employer. With a doctor's prescription, the insurer will pay for the service, saving several $1,000s. The insurer may even pay for the recommendations made as part of the management plan. Yeah, I mean, there are so many programs within these insurance carriers that they've developed these over the years to differentiate their offerings. And the problem is that workers' comp is in a hard market where no one really cares that much about what's going on in workers' comp, because we have to have workers' comp. Sorry, soft market. We have to have workers' comp, but all of them are kind of the same, going back to that table stakes slide. And, who really cares? We have to have workers' comp to do business. So whatever. And then the transaction happens, and then none of the risk control resources that carrier promoted and marketed, and maybe put some thought into for your insurance decision makers, none of that comes through the organization. So especially with workers' comp, it's just kind of a uninteresting must have to do business type of policy. And so it might come down to you as a safety professional to kind of knock on doors within your own organization to find out what is out there. Who is our workers' comp carrier, and then go from there. I know that's what I've done in the past, because when I was early in my career, I didn't even understand, what's an insurance carrier and what's an insurance broker. Like if someone asked me who's your workers' comp carrier, I'd be like, Brown and Brown. And then someone would say, well, that's a broker. Oh, I didn't know that. So sometimes the insurance broker on your company's account, they've been with your company for a long time. The insurance broker relationship is often, very personal. It might be even, a friend of, someone in higher levels at your organization. And so sometimes they're just there. It's a standard, it's a thing. They've been there forever. And so ask, who are those people and how can I get engaged? Insurance carriers change usually more often than your insurance broker. And so, managing those relationships can be a little difficult if you're making a lot of change. But often that broker is more of the constant, and then the carriers come and go. It depends on how your organization operates. Sometimes people, stay with someone for 3 years and then move on, just because we're not going to stay with someone for more than 3 years. Some companies go to market every year for their workers' comp. It just depends on how your organization approaches it. You may not have any influence into that, but the outcome of those policy decisions, you can take advantage of those resources. So definitely just ask those questions. And it also gets you visibility with higher up folks in the company, and showing that you are interested in, the overall business of the company. And so it can be really good for your career progression at your employer as well. Or you can learn about a whole different career path in insurance risk control, and make some connections that way too. I know sometimes the pipeline from client to employee is always there, but if you haven't had a job in risk control, it really is a great role, especially early career, to learn a lot about businesses and insurance, and seeing different types of work environments. And then, maybe you decide you want to go into a different work environment and go work for a manufacturer when you came from construction, let's say. So, I'm just a big fan of risk control, whether as a risk control person or utilizing their resources as a customer. All right. So this is my call to action. Here's my QR code that has all my contact information. Find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That's probably it. And then my own website, where I try to blog a little bit more than I have been. So definitely reach out. I want to hear, your questions. I love to hear success stories of how people have been creative with their insurance partnerships, because that just helps me when I go out and do this kind of outreach to people, that, hey, this is something, someone else did, and you can totally just copy it in your own insurance relationship. Go for it. The worst you can hear is no. And if you weren't using any of the resources, then, your situation isn't changed. But usually the answer from the insurance carrier or broker isn't going to be no, it's going to be something. It might be low-level self-service resources, but as I've discussed, there can be some gems in there. You just have to look. So I guess now would be the time for dedicated question time. I think I answered everything that was in the chat that was phrased as a question. So if there's anything else that you are just dying to come here and ask me, now's the time.
All right. Well, if there aren't any more questions, all I can say is that was incredible. I know I took away a lot about insurance that I wasn't expecting. And anytime we talk about gamification with anything, you definitely grab my attention. I'm a big fan of that. So, oh, Allison does have a question in here. How often should we meet with our carrier?
That's going to depend on a service plan, if there's one set up. And if there isn't a service plan set up, it's going to depend on the size of your company. So smaller employers often, like I said, you get pushed those self-service resources and may not actually have any in-person or personal outreach contact with your insurance carrier, especially if it's just one line. If it's just workers' comp and you're a small policyholder, you may not hear anything. Because sometimes the companies that serve you, their division that serves smaller employers just is understaffed. And so you may not have the resource there. But it's likely your company has an insurance broker, so you could reach out that way. And no matter what, a broker is going to meet with their client at least twice a year. Once to gather information for their renewal, or if they're going to be looking at different markets for different policies. And then the second time would be to present those options. I guess a third time would be to actually coordinate a kickoff with those new options. So it might be three. So it really depends on the size of the company. If you're a middle market employer and you're with one of the big insurance carriers that I mentioned that you see on commercials, you may get 2 to 4 outreaches from that company. It just really depends on what's your claims history, what are they working on with you. If you're doing pretty well, don't have a lot of claims, then risk control may not reach out to you, but it doesn't mean that there aren't resources available. So again, just ask and see if you can sit in on those meetings too. I know that's what I did. It's not great, but I learned that a lot of my peers in construction safety were involved on every workers' comp claim. And early in my career, I thought, yeah, that's what I need to do. But then I would get involved in more workers' comp claims. And I realized, no, I do not need to be involved in every single one of these. Often I did because it would help communication, but sometimes for other ones, it just didn't make any sense. So this is forcing you to understand a little bit more about your company and their philosophy towards risk management and insurance, and how, if it makes sense for you to jump in a little bit more. Let's see. Michael here says another awesome resource is the carrier's risk manager. Previously, about once a year, ours would come on site and we would do a walkthrough, and he would point out weaknesses in our safety program and facility. Yeah, definitely. A lot of carriers, especially workers' comp, often property too. It's part of that insurance carrier's policy to come out and actually do at least one on-site loss control evaluation, mainly to make sure you exist and that your operations match what was on your insurance applications. So sometimes right at the beginning of that new insurance relationship is when you're going to see the most activity. And based on that visit and that outreach is what's going to set, the service plan for the rest of the policy year. And yeah, definitely, like Allison said, invite them for a safety audit. They will do this when you are shopping or renewing, for sure. With insurance brokers, it's important that they know who your company is. They know what your safety practices are, because that insurance broker is out there talking about your company with other carriers in the hopes of making your company attractive for those other carriers to be competitive for their proposal to you. So it's important that they have a comfort level with what your organization does. And so often that will be the broker's account executive, or, whatever they call their salespeople. Sometimes they have a vice president title. It may not even be a risk control person. So it's important that that salesperson from your insurance broker understands what you do and can articulate some of the things that make you different on safety. Because I've seen the other side where a broker kind of says the wrong things, or in not saying much, that says it all about a prospect. And as a carrier, it's like, well, we're not interested. You know, their class code is awful. They're in a difficult class of business, not interested. But if your broker can articulate some things that your safety program is doing that might set you apart, then that's good for when you're shopping or renewing with carriers, for sure. Excuse me. Great comments.
All right, we'll give it one more second to see if we have any more comments or questions that come in the chat. But in the meantime, Abby, thank you again. That was amazing. I think there's a lot of great information in there. Just to remind everyone, you can grab the PDF version in the handout section. So download that, and also everybody will be receiving a recorded version of this. So if you took a lot of notes and you want to go back and hear it again, you can go back and do that right after this. So you should be getting an email right after this session is over. And we're also going to be sending out another email at the end of the week that has every recording all in one place. So Abby, thank you again. Really appreciate it. Our next session is coming up at 1:30 with Frank from Opticare Connect, where we'll be covering opioid overdose, Narcan usage, and being prepared for what might be a worst case scenario. So hope to see everybody there. And Abby, thank you again. Really appreciate your time today and sharing all that wisdom and knowledge with us. So thank you.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Safety Nights, for all that you do for this community. It's really cool.
Oh, thank you. Looking forward to doing more and sharing it, what we do for a great group of people who honestly couldn't be more happy to be building a community for. So thank you to you. Thank you to everybody that's here and everybody that's watching. And we'll see you at the next one.